right, Pierre. So let's start off with a quick sound check before we really jump into the big tough questions. So what did you have for breakfast this morning?
I knew I was going to get this question.
Yeah, that's my standard first question.
Yeah, well, so I had some bread and jam and some tea.
No, is this like any homemade jam? Is it fancy jam?
It is. It is. No, homemade from my mom.
Oh, nice.
The bread was homemade by me.
Jeez, that's
the tea, well, I couldn't go that far.
Right, you didn't go that far.
No.
Awesome. Well, I think we're sounding good here. This everything sounds good. So why don't we jump in? Why don't you first start off by telling my listeners kind of what your project is and where they can find it?
Yeah. So I've launched a campaign on Indiegogo about 3 weeks ago. It's called REBO, REBO, and it's, let's say, a reinvented bottle. It is a smart bottle, and what we say that is the first bottle that cleans the planet as you drink. So basically, it's a bottle that is so smart that not only tracks how much water you're drinking in order to give you a hydration plan, but also knows how much plastic you're saving. And based on the plastic that you're saving, we create some credits that then sponsor the collection of plastic with our partner that is called the Plastic Bank.
That's really awesome. And I think these are the types of projects that are doing really well right now, where they have that sort of social cause sort of underneath it. So kind of what was something that sort of like the inspiration? How did you get inspired to, not just make a water bottle, but how did you kind of think about having sort of a bigger picture behind your product?
Yeah, so I come from a career in a big corporation, Procter & Gamble, and I've been doing a few projects on sustainability in that space. And the last project that I did was a shampoo which was made of plastic collected in the ocean for the brand Head & Shoulders. It was a big first for the corporation. It was something which really opened my eyes to the problem of plastic waste, but also on the consumer side and the fact that consumers were interested in finding solutions. And so, I got to study a bit more the problem. I quickly discovered how much of the problem was connected to plastic water bottles, because we are using 1 million plastic water bottles every minute. Imagine that. And so I thought, well, if I want to tackle the problem, maybe plastic water bottles are a good place to start. And that's where the idea was born. And there was a big intuition behind, which was every time you're using a reusable bottle, you're doing something good for the planet. There must be a way of capturing that something good. And then again, that's how we got to the idea of REBO.
That's cool. So, for our listeners who, obviously can't see it right now, kind of walk me through, like, how does this work? I mean, ideally for the the end user, they're just filling it up like water, right? They're just putting water in their water bottle. But what's sort of happening kind of behind the scenes in terms of the tech? Is there an app that drives it? Like what's happening? Like, how's somebody using it in their day-to-day life?
Yeah, so it's actually pretty simple to use for a consumer, because you're getting your bottle. The bottle is equipped with a smart cap. In this smart cap, you're going to have a sensor. It's a time of flight sensor. So it's what a lot of fancy phones would use now in order to measure the distance. So the sensor would send this laser signal every time you're using the bottle. So every time you're opening or closing it, measure the level of water in it, process this information, and then send it to your phone through Bluetooth low energy. And so the phone would get the information, and based on how much you've been drinking, we'll be calculating what is your daily intake. And also based on your physical activity, which you can choose to have the app access your data from Apple Health, MyFitnessPal, Fitbit, whatever it is. It would give you a customized hydration plan. So, Jeff, if you are a big runner and today you run 5 miles, you would know that you would need to drink that extra amount of water in order to compensate for that and stay hydrated.
That's interesting. As somebody who does, if you've listened to a lot of episodes, I talk about, I do Bikram yoga, right? So very hot. So I sweat, I've sweated out things that I did not know existed in my body. So I'm constantly on those days drinking just gobs and gobs of water. And I've, even for myself, so I mean, here's mine. It's not as fancy as yours, but now I've been asking, so I've been asking questions of like, actually, how much am I drinking every day? Because I'm now, I got the watch, so I measure my sleep. I put my food in, but I was like, did I drink 3 of these today? 5 of these today? 1 of these today? What did I actually drink? So It seems like you're solving something that I'm actually starting to ask myself as to how much am I actually.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know. Now, the problem is if you do Bikram yoga, I don't know what kind of app will be tracking that.
Yeah. Well, they have the plain just yoga one, and I'm like, yeah, this was not just plain yoga because I'm I'm on the verge of dying right now. So yeah, I think I've done more than 300 calories right now.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
No, but it's good that you're saying it's something that you're needing. And, we've been seeing a lot of people actually buying apps on the Apple Store to track their water intake, but manually. And that's kind of painful to do. So
sure, sure.
that's also why we said, well, this could be, a lot of people could use one of these.
Now, is this your first time sort of diving into the space of crowdfunding and product launchings and product development? Like, is this particularly for you? Is this your first time kind of diving into that world?
Well, crowdfunding, yes.
Hmm.
Product launching, product development, not at all, because that's what I've been doing in a very, very different way. In the sense,
Yeah.
I was developing shampoos, but that's what I've been doing for the past 8 years. So uh, this is quite different, though. It's quite different because it's very, it's from beginning to the end. When
Sure.
you're in a big corporation, you take care of a very small part, whereas when you are doing your own product and you're launching it on crowdfunding, it goes from the name to the idea to the actual execution and to the media buying. So
Which one have you found? Do you find that you're in, being on both sides of the coin here? Is there something that you're finding that I really like having control of everything? If I want to change the name, I'll change the name, right, or whatever it might be. Do you find that you
yeah,
like that more than the you just work on
I,
this one thing?
I do, Hassan. I did like that one a lot, and the fact of being in control is definitely helping. But also, it's very helpful to be able to react, because when you're developing just a little part of it, if you're just developing the name or whatever, the
Hmm.
marketing around it, but then you're not buying the media, it's very hard to react to what you're seeing and what you're learning from consumers, rather than being able to do all that because you got full control and you have a view on 360 degrees.
Hmm. Now, what what has been maybe like the biggest roadblock in the last, since you started this project to now? What's been your biggest roadblock?
Well, I would say from development standpoint, the technology was pretty hard to crack,
Hmm.
in the sense that you're trying to put a lot of tech in a very small space and you're trying to make it affordable. And especially not being a hardware engineer or a software engineer, that makes it even harder. So,
Sure.
we had to do a lot of research, partner with some people that have enabled us to bring it to life. But it took a while, let's say.
Sure. When you were sort of exploring that, you mentioned that you had to, sounds like find some help, which is totally great. Like you had to realize that. What were you started as you kind of were going through these processes? What are some of the things or red flags that were popping up that you were like, you know what, I need to go get the expert in this field, or I need to source this? What were some of those moments as you're kind of going along that maybe other, people making a product would go, oh, I don't have to really do everything. Sometimes there's an expert that can do it better. What were some of those for you?
At the beginning, you believe that you know how to do things, and then you keep on hitting walls.
Hmm.
So for me, the hitting the wall was the kind of realization moment. When you hit more than one, for the same reason, then that's when you start wondering, hey, maybe I need to get the help for somebody else because they will tell me better how to do this one.
Sure. Um, and then on the other side of that, I mean, what's maybe the moment uh, that you really felt like you actually had something? You got through the blockers, you got that first prototype, it actually worked. The data, came out of it, whatever it is. What was that? Was there a moment that you just were like, yeah, this is bigger than, just a sketch or an idea?
Yeah, I think there was a combination of a couple of moments. So definitely getting the prototype in your hand was one of those, and seeing the technology actually working and tracking effectively your intake was definitely one.
Hmm.
The other one was also the smoke testing, because we'd been doing a lot of research and a lot of consumer research to try to figure out whether consumers would buy that. But that was really qualitative. So in the moment we actually put it out and we made, what I call a smoke test, I think there's lots of different ways of calling it, but we actually realized whether people would be interested in buying it. And, numbers were good. And that's when you were like, okay, that's good. I haven't been dreaming something that nobody wants to buy.
Hmm. Right. And how about, let's flip over a little bit more back to the kind of like you on the personal level. I mean, so you're at a company, you've got a job. What starts that process for you to say, you know what, I'm gonna go solve this. I'm gonna jump into this, endeavor, and try to launch a product. What was happening for you personally, maybe behind the scenes, that made you decide that I wanted to go ahead and jump into something like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in my case, launching my own company is something that I've always had in my mind. So it was more of a matter of when is the right moment and what kind of product or idea is going to be the right one. And so what happened is that, you start to get the kind of mid-senior level where you got your 8, 10 years experience. So you're like, okay, I've learned quite a bit. But I believe that when you get to that point, it's actually even harder to make the jump, because you say, well, I'm getting into comfort zone in a way.
Right.
But then things change, and you realize you're falling out of love with the job you've been doing for 7 years, and you say, well, maybe I got a good idea. The planet really needs it. I feel like giving it a try. So a lot of combination and things start to align, and you just feel like, okay, it's either now or never,
Right.
because
Right.
the longer you wait, the harder it's gonna be. So.
And did you have like family in your ear? Did you have other people kind of, what are you
Of
doing?
course, of
Yeah.
course. And my mother couldn't even understand what I was trying to do. So imagine explaining her you're quitting the job for something she cannot understand.
Yeah. Well, I bring that up because I think that that's something that everybody who's doing a crowdfunding campaign, myself included. I mean, I've run a gazillion of them at my own business. So I'm always, you know, I got it. It's all fine. It's not, how did you sort of block that out? Take it as a grain of salt, just, hey, they love me, they're just looking out for me. But I think it's important. How did you manage it? Because so many people get discouraged by that, so how did you kind of manage that
Well,
mindset?
they knew that this was going to make me happy in a way,
Mhm.
or at least that's what I thought, and they thought. And then, the hard moments came. So, but no, jokes aside, it's, they knew it was something that I really wanted to do. So in the moment they see somebody so determined, hey, I'm going to do this, I think if they're good parents or good friends or good
Mhm.
family, they're going to get behind you.
Yeah.
And they're going to tell you, look, regardless what you're trying to do, regardless the fact that I cannot understand it, it feels like you're sure about it. It feels like it's going to make you happy. So just go for it.
Sure.
And that was important. It was important to make them understand that it was important for me, and it was important for them to send me a good message, which would give me the push to actually do it.
Sure. That's awesome. Let's flip a little bit back over to the campaign. Um, Tell me a little bit about, as you guys are kind of getting ready to launch and that sort of stuff, what are you looking for in terms of who your audience is? Like how are you trying to define them, think about them? Because again, I think that's a huge thing in the crowdfunding space, is really actually knowing who would buy your thing, right? Like, it's not, because most people are like, everybody would buy this. Anybody who uses a water bottle would buy it. And I would say, well, so
Yeah,
how did
not
you
exactly.
guys sort of think about, and if there's any tools or research you did, how did you sort of identify, we think this is our audience who's going to support this?
Yeah. You know, I think it's important to also consider that this is crowdfunding, right? So
Mhm.
by definition, your audience is going to be a crowdfunding audience.
Right.
So for me, that was the biggest mindset shift first, because as again, I go back to what I was doing before, which was selling shampoo. A shampoo that everybody literally could buy, everybody with hair. So
Mhm.
no, I'm joking,
Yeah.
Jeff.
Well, I used to. I had the children, and the hair just
Yeah,
kept
no, I'm
falling out
joking.
over and over and over.
No, but what I'm trying to say is you're really trying to speak to the whole population. We're talking about a shampoo that you can get into supermarket. When you talk about a product which is somewhat innovative, that you need to pre-buy on a crowdfunding platform, which most people don't even know what it is,
Mhm.
you're kind of narrowing that down to a very small single-digit percentage of the population. So for me, that was the first step on knowing the audience, because I had in mind a certain profile of what my consumer would look like, but that consumer, it's maybe for the next phase. It's
Mhm.
not for the crowdfunding one. So that for me was the biggest realization. And speaking to the marketing agencies, especially the one that I brought on board, um, that was the thing. They're like, you need to go after people that are um, kind of used to buying crowdfunding, that
Right.
they will know how it works, and they will kind of fall for it in a way. And now within that, of course, you can start building some more specific audiences of people that are more sustainability involved. So
Mhm.
in the case of our product, there were different ways of going about it. You could go into the tech side, you could go into the hydration side, so like wellness, sport, and all that. And then there was the sustainability side. The real drive and motivation where we were doing this was the sustainability one. And so we intentionally decided to focus on that kind of audience as opposed to the other ones. We did try the other ones as well. So there
Mhm.
were good results associated perhaps with the wellness one.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, the sustainability one was the one that we mainly went after.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, one of the things too I thought that was intriguing on this is how did, when you're putting out your page, what are you thinking in terms of, we just mentioned that you kind of think about that audience. Now, how are you starting to kind of imagine what this looks like visually to people, right? So, photos, videos, GIFs? What are you starting to imagine? We need to tell this story through this content to ultimately, to hit the person that you're describing, right? So how do you start to sort of formulate what that plan starts to look like?
Yeah. Well, I would start from the fact that people have such a low attention span right now, right? So you try to focus a lot on pictures because they're going to tell much more than 1,000 words, and so that's why GIF I find are incredibly important in the crowdfunding space, because in a very, very short couple of seconds you can tell a lot of things about your product, the way it works, the way it looks, the kind of consumer is going to use it, which it would take you a full page to describe. So as you're saying, in order to get back to your question, I think you want to imagine what the identity of the brand looks like. And so we actually use the help of a graphic designer to design what the logo will look like, what the colors would look like. And then you kind of define what are the hard and soft points. So the hard points being like, what kind of colors am I going to use? What kind of font am I going to use? What kind of balance of images versus words am I going to use? And you're trying to come up with something which, looks nicely put together. Again, images and GIFs need to play a very important role, because I believe that's really the way to communicate into a crowdfunding page, and the video needs to go along with it as well. And we went for a pretty different approach for the video, but it's just because we wanted to send a very strong message on the problem and on what we were trying to do about the problem. So we went much more into telling around the problem rather than focusing right into the solution like a lot of the other videos are doing. Right. We may be paying the consequences in that sense. We may have gone further in terms of sales if we hadn't, but we really felt that there was something important to communicate to the people that would be interested in our product.
Sure. And for my listeners, we actually didn't really chat about this. I mean, right now you've got about 7 days to go when we're recording this. So this will come out probably about, early next week. So you're sitting at just under, I'm in US dollars, mind you, as well. So you're looking at just under about 70,000. But I think the number that's really intriguing is about you have 599 backers right now. So you have a lot of people at this point really into this idea, or a lot of insiders who are like, I'm in, I really like this idea. So, is some of these numbers where your campaign is that internally what you kind of thought you'd be in that ballpark? Like, are you guys feeling this is a major success or just a success, or are you guys still envisioning like it's doing exactly what we wanted to do? Where's kind of the temperature for the whole team and stuff?
I mean, we're happy. We're very happy with the results because, like you say, we got a lot of backers. I think we got them from 55 different countries. Wow. So you see also the thing, the concept is resonating with people all over the world. Now, I also have to say there's been a lot of limitations with this campaign because we're touching a social issue. Right. And so I don't know how much you know, but Facebook changed their advertising policy a couple of months ago.
Oh, yeah.
And we're paying the consequences big time. I mean, maybe that's a bit of an exaggeration, right. But they're making our life more complicated because pretty much I would say 50% of our ads would get blocked, 25%, so they would get blocked before even launching. 25% would get blocked while they're on, and the other 25% would keep on running. So crowdfunding has become more and more dependent on digital marketing, and therefore the fact of not being able to run ads the way you wish you could run ads, it is a penalization for when you want to grow much further the campaign in the way that has been kind of consolidated way of doing it on crowdfunding.
Yep. Yeah. It's funny. Yeah. We had that Facebook ad just bit us. I mean, and we had a client that we knew we were going to have an issue, but he didn't fill out his paperwork correctly. And we thought we were all approved to run, political ads or ads that are sensitive. Right. And, we get our campaign going and then everything's getting shut down. And then what we realized too is those ads then get tagged. Somehow they get tagged in the algorithm of their system. So you can't actually ever use those graphics again, or anything we would put up after we got approved would still get disapproved. And I'm like, what is going on? And you realize you're fighting an algorithm. And so, but I think this is an important thing. Like my scenario, the client was completely distraught, blamed us as if we're Facebook. You guys, it looks like have taken it with a grain of salt and said, listen, this is what it is. It's how the world works. We don't control it. How do we pivot and still be successful?
It's not easy. And of course, I'm not going to give you the hard version. No, I'm joking. But we knew about it. We knew about it when we launched. So we knew it was going to be a problem. The agency told us it was going to be a problem as well. But we thought we would find ways of getting around it. I mean, if you're not so explicit on what you're trying to do, you may still be able to get
Hmm.
around it, and we're doing that.
Yeah.
Now, uh, if anybody needs to run a project in this space, I think they just need to be careful and just be aware. I think
Yep.
it's a matter of not being caught by surprise. At least we were not, which
Hmm.
is good.
Right. Yeah.
I thought we'd be able to run a bit more than what we're running. That I will tell you as well.
Yeah.
But, we're trying to find a balance.
Right. Well, at this point, when you guys sit back, let's just say 8 days from now, when you guys are sitting back, what do you think is going to be the biggest attribute as to why this campaign is successful? What do you think the core is? And then how are you taking that core into another product line or Amazon sales or wherever you guys go next? How do you take that sort of core that you're learning from right now and moving forward with it?
Yeah. Well, I would say the core is the reason why we started a project in the first place, which is try to do something about a problem that a lot of people are aware and they don't know what to do about it,
Hmm.
which is plastic waste. And so we have tried to create a product which is an alternative to what a lot of people are still using, which is plastic water bottles. But we're giving that extra twist and that extra motivation to do this habit change, which is the contribution by funding the collection of one bottle every time you're drinking from our smart bottle. And I think this one-to-one, this sustainable impact, this driving a continuous action as people are using the bottle, I think these are all elements that people are liking a lot. And those are the ones on which we're going to keep on focusing our brand zone. They're going to be the main axis of the communication around the brand, I would say.
Hmm. That's cool. Tell me a little bit about, or well, pretend I'm calling you for advice on crowdfunding. What are you telling me to prepare for, to get ready for? How are you guiding me to have a successful campaign if somebody called you?
Yeah, well, do your homework first of all. Meaning, crowdfunding is not something you do from one day to the other. I
Hmm.
mean, I know as Jeff, but
Yeah, I know. There's
the
other people
imaginary
listening.
Jeff, yeah, the
Right.
imaginary Jeff who doesn't. Well, I think you need to do a lot of homework because you need to understand that it's different from anything else.
Hmm.
And so, the fact crowdfunding, you want to build your crowd, you want to build an audience before, you want to get your mailing list right, you want to get some people that are getting excited with a Facebook secret group or whatever it
Yep.
is, so that in the moment that you launch, you're going to get that kind of traction that will get your campaign to be fully funded in a very short time. The shorter the
Hmm.
better.
Yep.
And then potentially even use that as a marketing tool later on to
Right.
show how successful you were. And so for me, yeah, pre-campaigning is one of them. Spending a lot of good time on defining the product, testing it before, understanding what resonates better with consumers, through the smoke testing, through just running some ads to see which ones are getting most clicks on your webpage or
Hmm.
whatever it is.
Yep.
Then getting it right in terms of communication material, like spend your time getting the video right, sending the right message in that video, and get um, the campaign description to do the same job that your video is doing, but just adding more layers of communication, adding more visuals, adding more specifics that people may not be able to grab from the video you're putting
Hmm.
out. And then get your marketing right.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I this much better than I do, but I think the crowdfunding world used to be a bit different a few years ago,
Mm.
where word of mouth and your placement on the Indiegogo or Kickstarter page would kind of set the success of your campaign. I think now that can be something which is good enough for getting your campaign off on the first couple of days. But then if you don't actually put the media money to reach consumers that are going to convert and buy your product, you may be left with your friends, family, and a few other people that have
Yep.
discovered you through the algorithm, but not much more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. We've. I think for us, I mean, we've been doing this 10 years. That's the biggest change for us, especially in the last 3. Is just it is so dependent on the your ad budgets, and getting those to convert. The friends and family really is only going so far, anymore, and
Yeah,
it's just what it is. And the platforms I think have lost a lot of weight in terms of the internal community supporting a bunch of campaigns. I think we're probably that's just not happening anymore. I think that's long gone right now. So you are over on Indiegogo. Was there a conversation between Indiegogo and Kickstarter as to why you chose one or the other?
yeah, there was. I mean, to be honest, we're gonna go with Kickstarter first,
Hmm.
but then a few factors got us to shift on Indiegogo, which is I'll tell you what they are. I mean, on one side, the Indiegogo team was very much available and supportive on, giving us arguments why we should go with them, but also
Hmm.
support us with a few things like a newsletter. We are based in Switzerland, which means that on Kickstarter we would have been on Swiss franc,
Mm-hmm.
which can be a bit of a killer for people that don't know the currency.
Yep.
Whereas in the case of Indigo, we're able to set the campaign in euros, which is, again, not US dollars, but still something that people are a bit more used to seeing. And then the other thing is, we really wanted to run the campaign this year. And we were not ready to do that before mid-November, which is virtually the worst time you can run a campaign on crowdfunding. And so in trying to get around all these limitations of running during that time, we thought that Indiegogo with secret perks and a few other features would enable us to do, a better job of maximizing Black Friday, Christmas, New Year's resolution, whatever those things are, which otherwise Kickstarter gives you less flexibility in doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think all that makes sense. I mean, I think you made a very smart choice because, if I was sitting on the side making those decisions, I'd go, we've got more options here, because Kickstarter is great. It has its place too, but it's to us, even right now, like, Kickstarter is becoming kind of an old platform. I mean, nothing has changed on it in 10 years. The no pixel code.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that one for me is like, man, I'm doing so much in Facebook ads. The fact that you won't give me, which really right now is like a core basic principle for anything you're working on. If you don't have that pixel in, it's like flying blind. It's like,
right. I agree.
We'll get there. We'll land the plane somehow. Well, cool. Well, okay. So, you got 7 days to go when we're talking. So when people are listening to this, you probably have, 4 to 5 days to go. After the money starts to drop and you've got all that in place, what starts to happen? What does the next year look like? What's that timeline look like for people?
Yeah, it looks intense the next year, because, one thing is to actually kind of design your product and get to prototype. The other thing is to actually produce it. And I don't have that much of expertise in producing hardware, but some of the people that I'm working with do have some, or more than I do at least. And, they keep on giving me, hey, watch out, this is going to be tough. This is going to be intense. And, and so I'm preparing for the worst, to be honest. So the next couple of months, the next few months actually are going to be focused on that. So traveling to China, figuring out how to integrate the technology into the cap, material choices, and a few other things that will enable us to deliver a very high quality product, but still very mindful of the reason why we're doing this, which is do something for the planet and for the environment. So we also need to be very, very careful with material choices, with recyclability of what we're using, with the standards of work and labor of the partners we're working with. So, we've been doing a lot of this work, but I think the next few months are going to get into, rolling up our sleeves and actually getting to do it. So we're going to be able to get a prototype in the next, I would say, around end of March. We should be able to get like a real production prototype, and then, alpha testing, beta testing, development of the app, which is going to happen in parallel, all the back office kind of dynamics, and then, hopefully be able to ship the product as soon as possible to our backers.
That's cool. Well, walk me out. I mean, so that's a big year right there.
It is.
Walk me out maybe 3 to 5 years from now for like a vision you have of the whole company. Like, is this something that you're making multiple products all in this space, or you're just making this one and then moving on? What do you kind of envision for the future?
Well, funnily enough, to answer your question, I think I should just tell you the name of the company. We call the company the RE Company. And so the RE Company, and REBO is the first product, which is our bottle, our invented bottle. So the idea we really have is to reinvent common products to have a positive and sustainable impact. So, the bottle is the first step. We definitely want to do it right. We want to make it big because there is a very big opportunity behind it. But then, it is very likely that we're going to go into other products. We're going to try to reinvent other common products. And I hope we're going to be successful both in making REBO a very big success, but also at diversifying into other kind of products. And, making REBO a big success means that we're finally going to see the sales of plastic water bottles going down. We're going to see a habit change that is spreading everywhere, not just, in the US, I guess you're pretty good already at carrying around your water bottle, but a lot of other countries are not as good. So there is a lot to be done in that space. And we hope that, with what we're offering with REBO, we're going to give enough motivation to people to make that change and to make that switch and carry the bottle with you all the time.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, thinking that the U.S. is better at it. So I'm outside of Detroit. If you ever want to, I don't know if you ever heard about what happened here in Flint, Michigan, is where we haven't invested in our water systems in 50,
Okay,
60
no,
years.
I was not aware.
Yeah. So do a Google of that, because Elon Musk came in and basically paid out of his own pocket to fund all our water filtration systems, so kids in school can literally drink water that's not full of lead. Huge story here in Michigan. And the solution that we've had now for about 3 years is that people can just go pick up bottled water so we're going through, you might I think you mentioned 1 million a minute. We might be doing that just in Flint, Michigan alone here.
Wow.
And we're in the Great Lakes, we're surrounded by water, right? So it's like
That's a paradox.
Yeah, so you're looking at the solution is to just continue to bring bottled water, 20-ounce Ice Mountain bottled waters, I mean, it's just like, come on, there has to be a better solution than this. So yeah, that's something here locally that's just been mind-boggling. And then to know that like our government doesn't fix the problem, you wait for Elon Musk to come in and fix it. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Well, at least somebody's doing something.
Somebody's doing something. You're right. You're right. Right. Look at the positives. Just look at the positives. Well, cool. Well, how can people, kind of follow your progress online, stay in touch? Obviously, they can go to Indiegogo to become a backer. But
yeah,
how can they kind of follow what you guys are doing and stay in touch?
Well, I think becoming a backer is the best thing you can do, because you're going to get all the updates, and that's over the next few months. I don't think we're going to be as public as everything that's happening, other than the backers that have a right to know what's going on. But, we created a Facebook secret group on before the campaign, which we're doing as a kind of pre-campaign engagement tool. So that's definitely something that we're going to keep alive. We're going to be on LinkedIn as well. On LinkedIn, we're going to be posting things regularly. So I guess that's where people can follow us. And oh yeah, by the way, sorry, Instagram as well.
Okay.
We have an account with 3,000 something followers. And hopefully they're going to become much more, especially if the listeners would join and follow our progress.
Awesome. Well, Pierre, again, like I said, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. This is a really great project. It's not just another, tech widget thing out there. It really does have a great meaning behind it, great purpose behind it. And I think you guys have done a great job of going out and swinging the bat at a campaign and doing really well on it. So again, kudos to you, and good luck over these next 7 days, and hopefully you can get a lot more backers.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
All right. Thanks so much, man.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.